Hello everyone. Thank you for joining my today's proposal defense. I'm Mohan Zalake, a fourth year PhD student at the Virtual Experience Research Group. The title of my proposal is Designing Adaptive Virtual Human Conversations Based on User Personality to Promote Healthy Behaviors. I'll begin my presentation with introduction to virtual humans and my motivation for using virtual humans in health context. So what are virtual humans? Virtual humans are computer-generated 3D characters that look and behave like humans. These virtual humans have been used in the context of promoting healthy behaviors, and they are found to be effective in influencing user health-related behaviors. There are several reasons for their effectiveness. For example, virtual human can increase the comprehension of medical information using verbal and non-verbal behaviors. Virtual human can also act as non-judgmental partner to discuss stigmatized health topics such as mental health. And when these interventions are deployed via mobile and internet, they can be standardized and can reach large populations. One potential application of virtual human-based health intervention is to promote mental illness coping strategies among college students. Approximately 25% of college students are diagnosed with mental illnesses such as anxiety, stress, depression, and many more. College students with mental illnesses have high risk of dropout of colleges and often leads to lower grade point averages. There are several resources available to help college students. Researchers have recommended use of evidence-based coping skills that students can use on their own. Strategies such as breathing exercise, gratitude journaling are proven to be effective in improving mental health. However, students do not use these coping skills due to lack of motivation and barriers such as stigma and fear of being judged. In my work, I use virtual humans to increase motivation and reduce barriers of college students to use mental illness coping skills. During the conversation, virtual human will use persuasive messages to motivate students. For example, in this image, virtual human is promoting gratitude journaling. Gratitude journaling is writing down what you feel grateful about. Virtual human is persuading user by saying, many people have reported that practicing gratitude journaling for 2 to 3 times a week can have profound positive effects on their mental well-being. Most virtual human interventions are designed this way. You have a virtual human that delivers the same message to every user. However, think about this. What if virtual human used a different message instead of previous one? What if virtual human said, the scientists recommend practicing gratitude journaling for 2 to 3 times a week to improve your mental well-being? Which message is more likely to influence your decision to practice gratitude journaling? Different people might have different people might prefer different messages. Well, in fact, in my completed work, I found that first message is more appropriate for an extrovert user, and whereas second message is more appropriate for an introvert user. Although the effectiveness of question strategies is known to vary based on user personality in multiple prior works, current virtual human-based health interventions do not account for user personality. Therefore, in my work, I want to understand if virtual humans that employ question strategies by adapting to students' personality are more effective in promoting healthy behaviors than virtual humans that do not adapt to student personality. I aim to develop such adaptive virtual humans in the context of promoting mental illness among college students. Next, I'll discuss how existing literature from different fields inform my thesis research. My work builds upon prior work in 3 different fields: varying virtual human messages to promote healthy behavior, persuasion and the role of personality in persuasion, and predicting use of coping skills by college students. The findings from all 3 fields influence the design of persuasive virtual human interventions that I plan to evaluate in my proposed work. In the first set of background literature, I discuss how prior work with virtual humans have studied the effect of varying virtual human messages in the context of promoting healthy behaviors. Promoting healthy behaviors involves persuasion. Therefore, virtual humans are designed to use different persuasion strategies to persuade users to use healthy behaviors. Since virtual humans simulate conversations with a real human, virtual human researchers have borrowed these persuasion strategies from social psychology. These persuasion strategies from social psychology are then used to design virtual human messages. For example, Prior work has studied the effect of using positive and negatively framed messages with virtual humans. Authors found that the positive messages are more effective compared to negative messages when used with virtual humans to motivate users to exercise more. Similar to prior work, my work aims to use persuasion strategies from social psychology to design persuasive messages for virtual humans. To study persuasion, social psychologists have proposed several theories and models. Among all, Cialdini's 6 persuasion strategies have been widely studied and previously evaluated in designing persuasive messages in the context of promoting healthy behaviors. Therefore, in my work, I use Cialdini's 6 persuasion strategies to design virtual human messages. There are 6 Cialdini's persuasion strategies. In the reciprocity strategy, people are persuaded by asking them to return a favor. In the scarcity strategy, people are persuaded by showing that product is scarce and they need to grab it as soon as possible. In the authority strategy, people are persuaded by an expert or an authoritative person. In the commitment strategy, people are persuaded by asking them to be consistent with their past behavior. In the consensus strategy, people are persuaded by highlighting other people have done the same. And in the likability strategy, people are persuaded by a person who they like and have similarities with them. Several prior work have studied how people's personality influence the effectiveness of these persuasion strategies. Multiple prior works have found that effect of these challenge persuasion strategies is known to be influenced by big 5 user personality dimensions of user. I'll be explaining these big 5 personality traits in my future slides. Therefore, in my work, I explore how the effectiveness of Cialdini's 6 persuasion strategies vary in the context of virtual humans and how they can be adapted based on user personalities to increase the effect of virtual human intervention. Since the goal of my work is to promote mental illness coping skills among college students, it is important to understand what factors influence college students' use of coping skills. Understanding those factors can help design effective interventions. To identify those factors, I rely on prior work by Bistrick et al., where they studied what factors influence college students' use of coping skills. They found that college students' motivation to use coping skills and perceived barriers were the most important predictors of their behavior to use coping skills. To increase motivation, the authors recommend the use of persuasive information that change college students' attitude towards use of coping skills. Authors also recommend addressing perceived barriers such as embarrassment or stigma of mental illness and the time required to perform recommended coping skills. In my work, I aim to deliver persuasive information to increase students' motivation to use coping skills and also address barriers using virtual human intervention. I'll be providing more details on how I plan to address the barriers in future slides. Next, I present my completed work in the context of using virtual humans for health interventions. In the context of using virtual humans for health promotion, my completed work can be divided into 2 categories. The initial completed work that forms the foundation for use of virtual humans in the health context, and the preliminary work that forms the basis for my proposed work. In the initial completed work, I found that virtual humans are acceptable interface to collect and deliver health information, such as with suicidal patients in emergency rooms. I've also derived several design guidelines for virtual human developers to develop effective virtual human health interventions. Through my completed work, I've also found that virtual humans are effective in promoting healthy behaviors across several different health contexts, such as mental health and colon cancer screening. In the later part of my completed work, I focused on designing persuasive messages for virtual humans. To do so, I used Cialdini's persuasion strategies from social psychology and evaluated them in the context of virtual humans. I also explored the feasibility of integrating virtual human interventions in a course curriculum of college students. This study was conducted in parallel with previous persuasion study. Finally, I developed a platform that enables rapid development of virtual human interventions with different messages and can be easily integrable with course curriculum of college students. In the interest of time, in this presentation, I'll only focus on preliminary work that forms the basis for my proposed work. However, it must be noted that the findings from the foundational work has heavily influenced the design of virtual human interventions in my preliminary work. Next, I'll discuss each of these work one by one, starting with completed work 1. In the first study, the goal was to borrow Cialdini's persuasion strategy from social psychology to design virtual human messages and evaluate them in the context of virtual human. Therefore, the research question was, does the effectiveness of Cialdini's persuasion strategies from social psychology translate to virtual humans in the context of health promotion? And since social psychology research has consistently found that user personality influences the effectiveness of these strategies, I wanted to see if similar findings can be seen with virtual human interventions. Therefore, the research question was, how does user personality influence the effectiveness of persuasion strategies when used by virtual humans to influence user intentions to change behavior? I want to highlight that I will be discussing this completed work in detail, especially methodology and analysis section, as my proposed work uses similar methodology and analysis. In this study, the virtual human promoted gratitude journaling. Gratitude journaling involves writing about what you feel grateful and is known to enhance mental health of people. The study was conducted with Amazon Mechanical Turk workers. In this study, there were 86 male and 96 female participants, with majority of the participants being white, which is similar to prior work with Amazon Mechanical Turk workers. And participants were equally divided across 6 conditions in a between subject study. The study was conducted online. It involved 5 main stages, starting with informed consent, pre-survey, which included demographics, personality survey, and users' prior intentions of practicing gratitude journaling. Then the participants were randomly assigned to one of the 6 persuasion strategies, where virtual human interacted with them to persuade them to practice gratitude journaling. In the virtual human interaction, the virtual human greeted the user, followed by a small talk. Then the information on gratitude journaling benefits were provided, followed by virtual human using persuasion strategies to persuade user to practice gratitude journaling. And finally, virtual human ended the conversation. After the interaction, in the post-intervention, users' intentions to practice gratitude journaling were measured again, and users were given a chance to practice gratitude journaling. For persuading users, virtual human used different types of messages based on Cialdini's persuasion strategies. Some of the examples are provided on this slide for the consensus and authority strategy. Virtual human used statements like, many people have reported that practicing gratitude journaling for 2 to 3 times a week can have profound positive effects on their mental well-being. And for the authority strategy, the virtual human used, the scientists recommend practicing gratitude journaling for 2 to 3 times a week. Mental health authorities have found evidence that this can have profound positive effects on your mental well-being. These messages were developed by computer science researchers and were internally validated by 4 other researchers who were not involved in the research. The intervention content was validated by mental health expert also. For the metrics, users' intentions to practice gratitude journaling before and after the interventions were measured. User behavior of practicing gratitude journaling were measured based on whether users practiced gratitude journaling after the intervention. And users' open-ended responses were also collected to understand users' decision to practice or not practice gratitude journaling after the intervention. And finally, users' personality was measured using IPIP scale. The IPIP scale measures users' Big 5 personality traits. The scale is open source and has been used several times in prior work. According to IPIP scale, the extroversion personality dimension measures extent to which people are sociable, seek the company of others, and express dominance. Intellect personality dimension measures extent to which people are curious, seek new experience, and imagine. Emotional stability measures extent to which people express negative emotions such as anxiety. Agreeableness measures extent to which people are cooperative, generous, warm, and sympathetic. And finally, consciousness measures the extent to which people are organized, responsible, and careful. In the data analysis, the first step was to identify different personality types in our study population. Remember, the IPIP personality scale only measures people's score on personality dimensions. So for example, on the IPIP scale, I would have different scores for agreeableness, consciousness, emotional stability, extroversion, and intellect. And my personality type would be combination of these personality dimensions. So identify those personality type in my study population. I used a method called latent profile analysis. Latent profile analysis has been used in prior work to identify different personality types in the study population. Latent profile analysis basically clusters people into different groups based on their scores and different personality dimensions and IPIT scale. Based on this grouping in our study, we observed two different groups of people. One group had above average scores on extroversion dimension, but with average scores on other dimensions. Whereas other group had below average scores on extroversion dimension, but with average score on other dimensions. For simplicity of discussion, I call them extrovert and introvert group. And I'll be referring to them as introvert and extrovert group in my future slides. These personality types were used in repeater measure ANOVA to understand the effectiveness of different personality strategies. First, we measured how did different personality strategies influence users' intentions to practice category journaling. Overall, users reported higher intentions to practice category journaling after the intervention compared to before the intervention. In this graph, x-axis represents the personality strategies, and y-axis represents users' mean intentions to practice category journaling in pre and post-intervention. Blue line is pre-intervention, whereas red line is post-intervention. As you can see here, likability and reciprocity were the most effective personality strategy. Since some people might be inherently motivated to practice gratitude journaling, we also analyzed change in user intentions before and after the intervention. Similar observations were made when change in intentions was analyzed. This was an interesting result as these strategies were one of the least effective in social psychology literature. Social psychology literature suggests that for likability and reciprocity to be effective, there needs to be a social actor to increase likability, and favor has to be performed for reciprocity. And virtual humans satisfied both the conditions. The findings suggest that virtual humans' ability to be a social actor and have conversations with user where favor could be performed. This could have increased the effectiveness of likability and reciprocity strategy in our work. Next, we analyzed the role of personality on the effectiveness of personality strategies in influencing user intentions to practice category journaling. The graph here shows user intentions to practice category journaling before the intervention. The blue line represents the introvert group and the red line represents the extrovert group. And on the right graph, users' intentions to practice category journaling after the interventions are shown. If you look at the authority strategy here, this strategy is most effective for the introvert group. However, it is one of the least effective for the extrovert group. Similarly, if you look for the consensus strategy, it's the most effective for an extrovert group, however, the least effective for the introvert group. This shows that if we were to adapt personality strategies used by the virtual human based on user personality, we can possibly increase the effectiveness of virtual humans by showing the right strategy based on user personality. Along with user intentions, we also measured users' behavior of performing gratitude journaling after the intervention. In our findings, we observed that 25% of the users practiced gratitude journaling after the intervention. To understand why users didn't practice gratitude journaling after the intervention, we qualitatively analyzed users' open-ended responses by grouping them into different themes. We found that time was a major factor. For example, one user said that I'm too busy to do so right now. Lack of time is also known to be a major barrier in prior work too. Other barriers include lack of perceived need to practice gratitude journaling. One user said, I don't feel stressed, and I have other ways that I keep myself focused on being positive and staying in a good place. At this time, I just don't feel that I need to practice anything else. Some users also believe that it would not help them. One user said, I also don't feel like it's something that would help me out in the long run. Whereas some users believe that they can't perform gratitude journaling. As one user said, I'm not sure if it would do any good, don't have the patience for it, don't feel too grateful. The overall takeaways for the first completed work are cheerleading persuasion strategies are effective in influencing user intentions to change behavior, and the effectiveness of authority and consensus strategy varies based on user personality. However, these strategies were only effective in influencing user intentions. To influence user behavior, there are some barriers that need to be addressed. Next, I describe my second completed work that was conducted in parallel with completed work 1. This study explored the feasibility of deploying virtual human interventions via course curriculum of college students. One of the major barriers in use of coping skills among college students is lack of knowledge of available resources. Therefore, in this study, we aim to explore the feasibility of integrating virtual human interventions within the course curriculum of college students to deliver mental health information. The research question was, can virtual human-based interventions that are embedded within the course curriculum promote mental illness coping skills among college students? This study was conducted in collaboration with Georgia Southern University. The instructor included this study within the course curriculum via learning management system used by the Georgia Southern University. 15 computer science students participated with 13 males and 2 females. And in this study, virtual human promoted anxiety-reducing behaviors like breathing exercise and pursuing a hobby. In the study procedure, students began by filling a pre-survey. The pre-survey included demographics and measuring frequency at which students completed anxiety-related tasks. After the pre-survey, virtual human interacted with user and discussed information related to isolation and anxiety. Virtual human suggested several tasks that can be performed for a week by the students. After a week from the intervention, a post-survey was conducted to measure whether students performed the recommended behaviors. The findings suggest that frequency of performing relaxation activities significantly increased after the intervention compared to before the intervention for 64% of the students. The findings also show that 50% of college students reported higher frequency of performing breathing exercise after the intervention compared to before the intervention. The takeaway from my second completed work is that virtual human interventions can be embedded in a course curriculum to promote mental illness coping skills among college students. Next, I describe my third completed work that was also done in parallel with completed work 1 and 2. The third completed work focuses on developing a system that can enable rapid development of virtual humans for evaluating different types of messages. There are several challenges in development of web-based virtual human health interventions. First of all, virtual human developers have to develop several components such as 3D content, verbal content, animations, and speech for virtual human. This process takes a lot of time. Next, the development of content involves non-computer science experts. The content generated from non-computer science expert is used by virtual human developer to develop virtual human interventions. This is an iterative process and can significantly delay due to differences in backgrounds. Also, additional infrastructure such as servers, database for logging conversations, dialogue managers need to be implemented. This is a non-trivial task. Therefore, there is a need for a system that overcomes these challenges and enable rapid development of virtual human interventions. Therefore, I developed a framework that enables rapid development of virtual human intervention. The framework has been used for developing a system called Virtual Interviewer Platform. The video here demonstrates the system. I'll be explaining how the system works using the framework. First, anyone who wants to develop a virtual human health intervention, such as health experts, will use the conversational script editor to author the content. The content is branching conversation wherein virtual human changes responses based on user choices. The video here shows a sample script creation process. In this script, virtual human says, "Hi, I'm Alex," and user has two choices to respond. "Hi, I'm Mac, how are you doing?" or "Hi, how are you doing?" After saving the content, the script is stored in conversational script database. Now expert can test the interaction with virtual human by just click of a button. The same link can be shared with different users. Next, when user clicks on the link, a 3D virtual human is loaded on the browser and can have interaction with the virtual human as shown in the video.
Hi, I'm Alex. Hello. I am doing great. Nice to see you. Bye.
The voices and animations are generated in real time by the server, and conversation is stored on the conversational script database. Therefore, in my third completed work, I developed a system that enables rapid prototyping of virtual human interventions with different messages. This system will be used in my proposed work. Next, I discuss how findings from my completed work inform my proposed work. To summarize, I describe three completed works that form the basis for my proposed work. The first study identified the relationship between persuasion and personality in the context of virtual human health interventions with Amazon Mechanical Turk workers. The findings from the first study show that Cialdini's persuasion strategies are effective in the context of virtual humans to influence user intentions to change behavior. And the effect of these persuasion strategies is dependent on user personality. I also identified that several barriers led to lower changes in user behavior. The second study studied the feasibility of using virtual human interventions to promote healthy behaviors. I found that virtual human interventions that are embedded within the course curriculum of college students can be effective in promoting healthy mental health behaviors. The third completed work described a framework that was designed for rapid development of virtual human health interventions. I used the framework to develop a system called Virtual Interview Platform, or VIP. I aim to use outcomes of all my completed work described in my proposed work that aims to promote mental illness coping skills among college students. In my proposed work, I plan to use Cialdini's 6% strategies that were found to be effective in my completed work. I also want to understand the relationship between persuasion strategies and the personality in the student population. Next, I aim to improve the intervention by addressing the barriers identified in my completed work. The intervention will be developed and deployed using VIP and will be delivered through the course curriculum of college students. And finally, I want to evaluate to what extent adapting virtual human messages based on user personality increase the effectiveness of persuasion strategies. To achieve the goals of my proposed work I described just now, I proposed two studies. In the first study, I plan to replicate my completed work with student population. I'll identify the relationship between students' personality and the effectiveness of children's persuasion strategies. And the obvious question here is that why am I conducting the same study with college students, which was done with Amazon Mechanical Turk workers? It's because in my completed work, the study was conducted with Amazon Mechanical Turk master workers. Master workers are known to be reliable in completing the given task, which is a distinct characteristic of people who are high in consciousness personality dimension. And in fact, majority of the people in the study reported high on consciousness dimension. Therefore, I hypothesized that the personality dimensions generated from the latent profile analysis may vary in the student population. Therefore, I plan to conduct a similar study with the student population too. Also, to improve the existing intervention, I also address barriers that were identified in the completed work. And I plan to identify the most effective challenge persuasion strategy for students, irrespective of their personality. The findings of the first study will be used in the second study. In the second study, I aim to develop an adaptive intervention that uses the relationship between effectiveness of Persuasion strategies and the user personality from the first study. I'll compare the adaptive intervention with the non-adaptive intervention wherein most effective Persuasion strategy from the study one will be used. The findings will help us understand the extent to which an adapting Persuasion strategies based on student personality increases the effectiveness of Persuasion strategies. Next, I describe the details of each proposed study. In the first proposed study, I aim to understand what is the relationship between the student's personality and the effectiveness of children's Persuasion strategies to influence students' intentions and behavior. In this study, I aim to address the barriers identified in my completed work and prior work. One of the major barriers that stops college students from discussing mental health is stigma and fear of being negatively judged. Prior work has found that virtual humans are effective in enabling discussion of stigmatized topics like mental health. Similar to prior work, I aim to use virtual humans to address the barrier of stigma and fear of being negatively judged among college students by enabling anonymized, non-judgmental conversation with virtual human-like partner. To address the lack of knowledge of available resources, I aim to integrate the intervention with the course curriculum to increase the visibility of the intervention. As you can see in this demo here, the students can access the complete research study within the Canvas module. The student is filling the pre-survey before the intervention, currently in this demo. After the pre-survey, students can access the virtual human intervention without leaving the Canvas. Finally, other barriers like lack of time will be addressed verbally during the intervention. For example, if users chose lack of time as a major barrier, the virtual human would respond by saying, "You do not need a lot of time to practice gratitude journaling. Researchers recommend spending 1 to 15 minutes every day, at least once a week, on writing what you feel grateful about. You can just spend as low as 1 minute to become happier and feel more grateful." This study will be conducted with students enrolled in UF computer science courses. Currently, I'm in discussion with instructors of introductory computer science courses such as COP 3502. Similar to my completed work, the intervention will promote gratitude journaling. The procedure remains same as my completed work. The only difference is that barriers are also addressed during the conversation with the virtual human. Similar to completed work, users' intentions to perform the gratitude journaling will be measured pre and post intervention. To measure user behavior, students will be given a choice to perform gratitude journaling after the intervention. Open-ended responses will also be collected to understand why they chose to practice or not practice gratitude journaling. And finally, user personality will be measured using Apit scale. The data analysis will include identifying the personality types in a study population and understanding how effectiveness of these personality strategies vary in influencing user intentions to perform gratitude journaling. The relationship between student personality types and the effectiveness of persuasion strategies will also be evaluated for the next proposed study. In the second proposed study, I aim to use findings from the first study to design adaptive virtual humans. I aim to understand can adaptive virtual humans that employ persuasion strategies based on students' personalities be more successful in persuading users to change health behavior than non-adaptive virtual humans that use the most effective persuasion strategy irrespective of students' personality. Two types of interventions will be developed for this study, adaptive and non-adaptive. In the adaptive intervention, the most effective persuasion strategy will be shown based on students' personality type from my completed study. And in the non-adaptive intervention, the most effective persuasion strategy in general from the proposed study will be shown to students. The study will be conducted with UF college students and will be integrated within the course curriculum. To develop an adaptive intervention, the IP personality dimension scores from the Qualtrics filled by the students will be passed to the VIP. VIP will then use the latent profile analysis to determine the personality type using the IPIP scores. The personality type will be used to determine the most effective persuasion strategy for a given student. Determining the personality type is currently implemented in R outside the VIP. In my proposed work, I plan to implement it in the VIP using Python using PyMix Python package. The study procedure remains same as my completed work. However, instead of 6 groups, in this study there will be 2 groups, adaptive and non-adaptive. Similar to completed work, user intentions to perform the behavior pre and post intervention will be measured. To measure the user behavior, students will be given a choice to perform gratitude journaling after the intervention. Open-ended responses will also be collected to understand why they chose to practice or not practice gratitude journaling. User personality will be measured again using IPIC scale. In this study, analysis will compare adaptive and non-adaptive groups to understand to what extent adapting persuasion strategies based on user personality influences user intentions and behavior of performing gratitude journaling. That completes my proposed work. I'll now present the expected contribution from my proposed work and my timeline. My work aims to highlight the importance of accounting for individual differences in users when designing effective virtual human-based health interventions. My work will help understand what role does user personality plays in the design of persuasive messages for virtual human-based health interventions. My work also contributes evidence to the growing literature that borrows theories from human interaction in social psychology and applies them in the context of virtual humans. I evaluate widely studied Chialdini's persuasion strategies from social psychology with virtual humans. My work contributes a framework that addresses the challenges in the rapid development of virtual human-based health interventions. The system developed using the framework enables the rapid development of virtual human interventions, even by non-computer science experts. Lastly, I evaluate the efficacy of virtual human-based health interventions that are delivered through students' course curriculum while learning management systems such as Canvas. Here's the timeline of my PhD program. I began my master's in the beginning of 2016. My work in using virtual humans in health context began when I joined Work Lab in mid-2016. I graduated my master's in 2017 and began my PhD in 2017. I passed my qualifying exam in the beginning of 2020, and I aim to conduct my proposed work in spring and summer of 2021, and I plan to defend in fall 2021. That wraps my proposal talk. Thank you for listening, and I'm open to take any questions.